Hi, this is DL with Tranquil Living. And I know that a lot of you out there right now are faced with practicing yoga at home instead of a studio for the very first time. And I wanted to present to you something that is part of my Absolute Beginners yoga courses, which is a discussion of various props. So you know what they are, what's out there, what some alternatives are, and maybe the most important props that you might want to actually invest in for working at home. Now, normally I would spend a lot more time on this and give everyone an opportunity to experience different usages of the props, but for our purposes I'm going to go fairly quickly through them, just introducing you to what I would normally have in the studio and what I use myself on a regular basis. So let's start with the most obvious, which is the yoga block. Now, these are fairly inexpensive, but they're also really, really helpful. So if you were going to invest in anything and you didn't want to spend a lot of money, I would say that the block is probably the thing to get. Now, what the block can be used for, I'm sure you're already aware, but you might not be so. You can use blocks to sit on, which would help you be able to sit up straight without any effort and maybe sit up straight longer in some cases. They're also really good to help prevent hanging off the joints. So like if your legs are up here when you're sitting like this in easy pose, having a block under your knee, you can just relax the knee, the groin muscle can release. It's just a lot more comfortable and practical and safe. The other thing that blocks are great for is to bring the floor up closer to you. So if you're doing, like, for example, a forward fold and the floor feels like it's a mile away, then you can use the block at whatever height you choose, and that will help bring the floor up to you. So that's just some of the uses of a block, or two. It's good to have two because then you have one for each arm if you're doing like lunges and that sort of thing, and you need the help there. So I think these were maybe like $8 for the pair, not very expensive. Okay, the other common prop in yoga classes is of course the strap, and this helps make stretching easier because if you're stretching your feet and you can't reach your toes, or you have more of an opportunity to stretch comfortably. It can also be great for providing resistance, like if you, for example, have your arms overhead and you want a little resistance between your arms, then the strap can provide that. And of course, this is easy to find some alternative at home because most people have some form of strap or belt that they can use. But they are inexpensive as well. Okay, so I'm going to go to a really important prop that I always use in the beginning of my classes. I have my students work their feet by rolling, and I have different balls for that purpose. So we've got the little tiny golf trainer, which might work into smaller little spaces and be more intense. So there's that, and this one then is a racket ball, and this particular racket ball is quite soft. I'm having to, use some strength to squeeze it, but it is squishy. And I also have a different kind that's quite harder. So the reason I have my students always work their feet first in class is because we are basically a package of connective tissue. And all that connective tissue, you could say, it meets in the feet. So in other words, there are lines of connective tissue that run up the front of the body as well as the back side of the body. And when we work the feet, we're basically working the whole body. Reflexologists know this. It's all connected. And spending some time to work rolling the feet, usually standing, but you could do it sitting, especially with this little tighter ball. Really, really good to prepare your body for for what's to come in a yoga practice. And it's just something I always have my students do. I love it. It's a good practice. And if you try it at home, be sure to just do one foot and then stand and notice what you feel in comparing the foot you haven't done to the foot you have done. You'll be amazed. Okay, what's next? All right, I also have these little balls here. Now, this is usually something that I use for somatic feedback when I have people working either on their backs or on their bellies. But maybe not necessarily this big. This one is almost fully inflated, but you can tell what it is. If I just showed you this one, which is what I would more often use, you wouldn't know what it was. What is that thing? So this is, again, it's just for kind of somatic feedback. Really nice to work on the back. And not very expensive to get. Okay, so let's look at this next. So weight can be really relaxing and grounding. If you're in a restorative pose or even Shavasana, you can place this weight on the abdomen. Really good if you have cramps and that sort of thing. You know, if you have your feet in cobbler's pose, it can be really nice to have that extra weight there. So this is just a bag of salt, a 1 kilogram bag of salt, very, very cheap. And you know, the plastic is not so great, so if you were going to use it, you might prefer tactily to have some kind of a cotton covering. But the thing is that sandbags, like the actual yoga props, can be very expensive. I don't get it. So just buy a bag of salt, or even rice will work. What's next? Let's talk about bolsters. So in terms of what's really important to have at home, bolsters are probably the most expensive investment, but if you have some money to spend, they're also the most worthwhile because they really do their job well. And while you can use any kind of blankets or pillows in place of the bolsters, they're just not the same. So know that. And you know, you can spend a little or you can spend a lot, as usual with everything. But they are an investment. So I use the round. This is typically used under the knee, or I like to use it in conjunction with the bigger bolster. Now, if I was just going to get one, I would probably invest in this one. This is probably my favorite. It's really heavy. It's good for so many things. And I have one in my bed because it helps me sleep at night comfortably. Now, if you have any practices like Bhimani breath or alternate nostril breathing, it's great to be able to prop up your arms and have some support there so you're not just kind of hanging in space with your limbs. And of course, there are dozens of restorative yoga poses that you can do with this kind of a bolster as well. And that's that. So here's a rather unusual prop that you don't see much in yoga studios, but I have found a great use for this. So this is just a stick that you would use to attach a mop or a broom or whatever. So it's about maybe about 10 centimeters thick, I don't know, and then however long, and very cheap. I got this in a grocery store for like €2 or something. So this can be really helpful for providing some kind of resistance as you stretch in certain ways. Now this is probably like, you know, it's an inexpensive prop, but it's probably one that you wouldn't use yourself unless you kind of knew some things to do with it. And it's really good for arm movement, you know, rowing and overhead type of things, side to side. It just provides a little resistance. Let's talk about mats. Now, mats too run the gamut in price, so you can get something pretty inexpensive. And it's nice if it's sticky if you do a lot of standing poses, but you don't necessarily need something that's sticky. Now, in terms of size, I mean, the standard yoga mat is fine for very linear type of work, but as you see, I have two here. So for your own space, for making it most comfortable and for making it really most useful, I like to have, you know, the full range of space for my whole body to expand. So that's why I use two side by side. And then underneath here, because I'm on a hard floor, if you're on carpet, you're good. But if you have a very hard floor, then I would suggest getting some kind of a cushy, plushy mat that you can put under your yoga mats. And that just provides that little bit of cush to protect joints and to allow you to be able to rock and roll on your spine. And it's a lot more comfortable. And really this is tactily so pleasurable. It's very soft and velvety, and that's nice in itself. Okay, so what else? Back here you can see I have a chair, and I probably should have gotten it before I started the video, but let me bring it forward. Blankets, of course, are essential to propping up the body, and in different ways. Let me bring this over. Now this chair, there are chairs that are made that are called, you know, chairs for chair yoga. And, you know, those are fine. They have their purpose. I was fortunate to find these really bizarre chairs, which I love because the seat is super long and it provides all sorts of benefits in that regard. Plus, the back is really short. And while that can be difficult if you're using the chair for balances because the railing might be too low, it's really good for other things like supported dog pose and that sort of. So it's got other purposes, and I like how this is working for me. So you don't necessarily need to buy an expensive yoga chair. Any chair will do as long as it's not going to slip on you, right? It's got to be stable, and that's why having it on top of a mat is a good thing. And then you don't want to, you know, yoga chairs, they're folding chairs, which I really don't understand. Because if you get it, you know, sit on it wrong or press on it wrong, you could actually collapse the chair. So, you know, this one has 4 metal legs that are very sturdy. Okie dokie, where are we? Clunk. So finally, we have a Pilates ball, and this is not something that I work with normally with clients in my group classes, but it is something that I would work with in private, and also actually it's one of my favorite props before bed because I like to rebound on it, and it really just helps the muscles relax at night and just let go of all their tension. And it doesn't take long either, just maybe, you know, 3 to 5 minutes of bouncing on this thing, and I'm relaxed and ready for bed. So this is something that you don't necessarily need to invest in, but it can be really helpful for certain things. And of course you can do different poses on the ball or with the ball. So that's the world of props, and I hope this has been interesting to you and helpful as well as you prepare to work more at home with your yoga practice. You can contact me if you have any questions or put any comments in the comment section, and I'll try to answer. And you're welcome to visit my website at dlcesco.com. I'm also on Facebook and have a Patreon page if you'd like to support me there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon, I hope. Bye-bye.